I pray he's talking about each and every one of us here. Because he said, I'm not writing you something you have not heard before. I'm writing something you've heard many, many times. But the reason I'm writing is because finally, it's true in you. It's always true in the Lord, but now I see it also true in you. I pray, folks, that 2019 can be a year where God sees the word revealed in his people. And we are not just talking about God, but we can talk about ourselves also. And God can say about us, darkness is finally passing. And the true light is already shining. On this first half of the new year, how do we get there? For some of us, that might seem a mighty long way. Some of us may think about some things we did last year that we're not so proud of. We may think about some things that we have tried to give up, but we still have been dragging them into the new year. How can this be true in us? I want to read about somebody who also messed up. And we know the story. It's found in Luke chapter 15. But I want to read the last few verses of this passage, not the chapter, but of just this narrative. It says in Luke 15:20, and he arose, came to his father. But while he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. But the son said, Father, I've sinned. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. I've sinned against heaven, and I've sinned against your sight. But the father said to his servant, bring forth the best robe. Put it on. Put the best ring on his hand. Put shoes on his feet. Bring hither the fatted calf. Kill it. Let's eat and be merry, for my son was dead, but he's alive. He was lost, but now he's found. And they begin to be merry. No, I love that last part. They began to be merry. The two of them. Father and son. Now, we know the story, so let's not get it twisted. This is the same son who told his father, basically, I wish you were dead, so give my inheritance right now. But now they're married together. This is the same son that ran away to a faraway land, spent his money on everything under the sun. Illicit substance, prostitutes, wild living, ran out of money and finally drug himself back home. But now him and his father are together married. Folks, I don't care what you did last year. I don't care how bad you've been in the past. My word shows that when I come back to the Father, that me and him can become married together again. He says, I still look at you as my child. I still look at you as my son, as my daughter. And don't think that I do not love you. See, the son thought that he had gone too far. I'm not worthy to be called your son anymore. The father said, no. I thought you were dead. I thought the enemy had you in 2018, but you're here today. He had his hooks in you for a long time, but you're here. Now watch this, watch this. This son, when his father saw him, he had just come from a long trip on his way home. He was still dirty. He was still stinking of the pig pen that he had been living in. But his father embraced him. Said, you are still my son. 1 John chapter 2. One of my favorite passages in all the Bible. Verse 1. My children, I'm writing these things to you so that you may not sin. That's right. And if anyone sins, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. Don't get it twisted. God is not condoning our mess. He's saying, listen, I'm telling you over and over again, this is not new. I'm not writing a new message. God is saying, don't sin, don't sin, don't sin, don't sin. But if you do, you have somebody rooting for you. You have somebody praying for you. You have somebody standing for you. And his name is Jesus. He's an advocate for you. He's praying for you. So I don't care how bad you've messed up. I don't care what you've done. You can still drag yourself back to church, clean yourself up, and say, Lord, I messed up. And God says, I still want you. I still cherish you. I still want you no matter what you have done.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Don't get it twisted. I am not condoning our mess. That's not what I'm saying. This text is not giving us a pass to sin.
That's right.
But we have individuals that mess up like all of us do. And are beating themselves up and wondering if they still belong, wondering if they still have a place, like this son was. He had made his mind, my father, I am not worthy to be called his son, but if I can just be a servant. Father said, no, you are still my son. And I'm going to celebrate. I'm not celebrating the choices you made. I'm not celebrating the decisions you made. I'm not celebrating the sin you partaken in. But what I am celebrating is that my son that I thought was dead is alive. And he's home. I'm writing these things so you may not sin. But if anyone sins, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. You see, folks, we have the best advocate that you can imagine. I told you before, one of my favorite hobbies, I love to look at the history of the text. And we're not going to go there, but we just want to talk about how good an advocate we have. You know where it says in Revelation who is worthy to open this book. And they could find nobody worthy. And John was upset. John was depressed because John was an old Jew. And he knew something, and if we realize what he really knew, when he saw the book, he saw what the book was. The book was a deed to the earth. And in Jewish history, when a Jew lost his property, he could not speak for himself to get it back. There was only a very specific scenario where you can get it back. He had to get an advocate, somebody that knew him, but also somebody that had an in with the judge. And only that person can speak on his behalf. And if they spoke of it, he might just get his property back. You see, folks, God says don't sin because when we know the original sin, that's when we lost the deed to this world. Adam and Eve lost it. I hope we know that, folks. When Satan told the Lord that, listen, bow not to me and I'll give you the earth, I'll give you the world, he was not lying. Because Adam lost ownership of it when he sinned. But God became our advocate.
That's right. Thank you, Lord. That's right. Amen.
Because while the Father is judging all the books, everything you've done, we have an advocate in the Son that is advocating on our behalf. I know Ron looks messed up right now. Give him some more time. He's going to get it together. Don't write him off yet. I know it doesn't look possible. Just think about the father of the prodigal son. I guarantee every person in that town said, why are you going out here every day looking for somebody that's not coming home? He said he wants you dead. He took all your money. You've heard the stories about what he's doing. Why are you still looking? Why do you come out here, stand on the hill every single day? You are wasting your time. He says, no. One day my son's going to come home.
That's right.
I know he messed up. I know he did some heinous things. And the word does not say how long it was. But he stood out there every day. And just hoping, praying, wishing that his son would come home. We get in our head that when we mess up, God washes his hands of us. But while we are out being the worst we can be, God is standing, waiting, praying, hoping that one day we'll come home.
Amen.
He says, listen. And I want to say something before I read this.
Take your time.
These people John is writing to aren't perfect.
That's right. That's right.
They have their faults. They've done some things that aren't pleasing to God's eye. But this whole thing about perfection, folks, is that even though I'm not perfect, as long as I keep my hand in the Lord's hand, He treats me as if I'm perfect. That's why in chapter 12 and in verse 12, He says, I'm writing to you little children. That's all of us. Because your sins have been forgiven for His name's sake. I'm writing to you fathers because you know Him who has been from the beginning. I'm writing to you young men because you have overcame the evil one. I'm writing to you children because you know the Father. I written to you fathers because you know Him who has been the beginning. I have written to you young men because you are strong. And the word of God abides in you. And you have overcome the evil one. You see? God has this divine vision that He can see us not of who we are, but who we will be. That's why when He met Simon, He said, I know you're not him yet, but I can see who you'll be. So I'm going to change your name, even though you're not there yet. Even though you're not fully trustworthy yet. I'm going to change your name even before you've lived up to it. And that's how God views each and every one of us. You see, folks, the problem is we like to put God in human terms. Because you know how we are, let's be honest. We can write each other off. You don't do something I like, we're not friends anymore. You don't vote on my agenda, then we're not on the same team anymore. That's why we're what do they call it? What's the Congress now? Shut down. That's the word. Shut down. We'll shut down on one another. But God never shuts down on us. In this whole chapter in 1 John, he's telling us, listen, I want you to resist sin. So let me pause here, folks. There's some things that you have made a habit, that we have made a habit. There's some things, some habits that you know are not of the Lord. And you may have partaken in them all of 2018. It's time to let it go.
Amen.
You see, folks, we have to make the decision. You see, the prodigal son was still dirty.
That's right. That's right.
He still smelt bad. He still did not look good. But the one thing he did, he said, I am not going to live my life that way anymore.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what we have to do. For we have to make that decision. Yes, your neighbor may not see it yet. Your coworker may not see it. They may still look at you as the same person because you still may look like that. But you have to make a decision. I will not be the same person I was before. And if you do not make that decision, then this chapter is not about you. So the first thing we have to do is make the decision, Lord, those things I did, that man I was, that woman I was, I am turning my back on that way of life. Then God will say about you, darkness is passing away. And the true light is already shining. And he tells us how to get out of darkness. He tells us, you want to walk in my light? Start this way. The one who says he's in the light, yet hates his brother, is in the darkness until now. He said, listen, I don't care how many songs you sing. I don't care how many Bible studies you give. I don't care how many sermons you preach. You may look like the epitome of righteousness, but if you're harboring hate to your brother or sister, then all of that is moot and means nothing. That's why the story of the prodigal sons ends with the elder brother. Oh yeah, he was doing all the right things. Living the right life. But he ended up outside the celebration. Because he did not love his brother. And he had an issue when God chose to forgive. His father chose to forgive. And one thing that really sickens me sometimes is when I see Christians or those who claim to be Christians get upset when somebody has received forgiveness. And we see that too much in the church. No matter how bad they've been, no matter what they've done, you should be praising God when they've been forgiven. You should be praising God when they clean themselves up. Don't say, well, I don't think he's worthy anymore. Who is? Because if we're looking for somebody worthy, they're starting me, I need to put this mic down right now. Because none of us are worthy. So when we get upset, and I'm not just talking about vocally, I'm talking about internally, because I know there's many that may not say a word, but they go home and say, well, I don't see how they can choose them. Do they know what he did? God is not pleased. And don't get mad at me, I'll just read the word. The word says that light is not in you when you do that. Do not love the world, nor the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. This is a tough one for many of us. Because the word says that we are called to be pilgrims, to be sojourners, knowing that this is not our residence. But too many of us are so enamored with the world and what it can give us. That's where our relationship with God and our relationship with the church is subject to relationship with the world. Hear what I'm saying, folks. I don't have time to do that because I got to do this thing of the world. I wish I had more, and I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about personally. Why is our relationship with God subject to everything else? And God gets what's left. We need to get to the point where we would rather be late to work before we miss our devotion. We would rather lose our job than work on the Sabbath. We would rather not be able to pay our bills than to return our tithe, not to the church, but back to God. But it comes down to a simple point. You can't really love somebody, and married folks, help me out. You can't really love somebody if you don't trust them.
That's right.
Is that true?
That's right. That's right.
And truth be told, many of us sit here week after week, year after year, but we don't trust God will do what he said he would do. We don't trust that God's going to take care of us. We don't trust that if we put God first, that if we sacrifice for him, he will make a way out of no way. So because we don't trust him, and folks, I always say, the words mean nothing. What do your actions show? Because I can say I trust and I love the Lord every day. But when I'm confronted with a choice and I don't choose God above all, my actions make my mouth a liar. The Bible says the world is passing away. And also its lust. But the one who does the Lord, the will of God lives forever. Folks, I'm convinced more than ever that time is wrapping up. And sadly, it seems like we are oblivious to it. I see people that don't know and love the Lord opening their eyes quicker than we are sometimes. They're seeing the signs faster than we are. Or reacting to them. That's why God says, I'm not writing anything new.
That's right.
I'm writing something you've heard over and over and over again. And the only reason that something has to be written over and over again is if we did not get it the first time. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they don't do it anymore, but I remember when I was in elementary school, I was in second or third grade, I lived in California at the time. And you were learning your times tables. And they had what was called Mad Minute. And it went 1 to 60. It was 1 times 1, 1 times 2, up to 1 times 60. And you had to do all that in 1 minute. And then you would get your 2s if you passed that. Then you would get your 3s and all the way up to 12. But the thing is that the first day everybody's on the same level. Everybody has their 1s. But the person next to you may have finished the time on day 1. They may have got it all correct on day 1 and I didn't. So they move on and I stay the same. So the end of the year will come and time would go and some will be on their 2, some will be on their 6, and some will be done. Because until you've proven that you knew the foundation, you would get that, nothing changed, that exact same test over and over again. And there's many of us that are crying about stuff in 2018 that we cried about in 2017 and 16 and 15. And God is saying, I'm giving you the same storm. I'm giving you the same test. I'm giving you the same trial because you have been let to learn what I'm trying to teach you. And like those students, we get mad at God. And we say, I'm tired of this storm. I'm tired of this test. You know, my teacher said when I couldn't pass my 3s, I said, I had this like 5 days in a row. I'm tired of this. She said, then pass it. And that's what God is telling us. I'm sending you the same stuff because I've yet to pass the same trials. My young men in the balcony, if you don't pass the test God is teaching you right now, then you will be getting those same trials when you are my age at 32. So the best thing is to pass them right now. The best thing is to learn from them right now. The best thing is for God to say, listen, the darkness is passing away. What a great would God that be to say when you are young. When God can look at a young person saying the darkness in them is passing away. They are seeing the light. But if we've yet to learn, so folks, simply put, as we go into 2019, if you do not seriously talk to and learn from what God is trying to teach you, grow how God is trying to grow you. I'm not saying this to be mean, but those same tears you cried in 2018, you will cry in 2019. Those same roadblocks you had last year, you will have them this year. Those same temptations and turmoil you had last year, you will have them this year. Until you make it my Lord, I will learn what you want me to learn. As we close,